All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. So today we're going to be doing another Why Would You Use on the Trumna. So the Trumna, a new weapon added with the Heart of Deimos, and a weapon that is significantly difficult to craft, and you'll be excited to know, is actually kind of worth using. It is, of course, still a primary weapon and has a huge investment of resources to get going. But this weapon is unique and has some advantages that we haven't seen in the past. So, for this, like I said, it is extremely high investment. Putting this weapon together is very expensive, and then on top of that, it comes with 0 polarities. No, I'm not counting the one that comes in the Exilus slot. So it needs 5 Forma to really get going. That is an excessive amount of investment for this weapon. But if you want a primary weapon that you can shoot at things and actually feel good about it, this is probably one of the few options that is available in Warframe right now, as primaries are in a rough spot. So we have the usual suspects up top because this is a crit weapon, and then on the bottom we are going with viral damage backed up by Hunter Munitions and Vigilante Armaments. Really nice thing on this weapon is that it has heat inherently, so we can go with Vigilante Armaments instead of having to add a heat mod for a nice bit of crowd control, and also more importantly, armor stripping on heavily armored targets. That, of course, combined with Hunter Munitions, is going to allow us to actually kill heavily armored targets, and is very nice for this weapon. That being said, the primary fire, even though it is slow-firing explosive shells, is not the main attraction of this weapon. In fact, if this weapon only had its primary fire, I would call it supremely underwhelming. The real main attraction here is its secondary fire. The secondary fire for this weapon is really good. Not only does it do very respectable damage and can clear a lot of groups at very high levels whenever it procs Hunter Munitions, also, it's free whenever you fire it. The problem is charging it up. Charging up the secondary fire requires you to get kills with the primary fire, and that is the main issue with this weapon. Because while the primary fire is fine, in most cases I think you're going to want a way to group enemies together, such as Larva or Vauban's Vortex, etc., to make this weapon do what it wants to do. And the reason I say that is because it can only be charged up by its primary fire. This weapon could have easily been like super pushed and like extremely good if you could charge up its alt fire either with itself, and then by using it effectively to get kills, you would get more uses of its alt fire. That would be extremely good and very fun and super powerful. Or if you could utilize this alongside Warframes that get kills with their abilities, such as like Korra, or Excalibur, or whoever to charge up this, that would also be very good, but it is only charged up by getting kills with the primary fire. And this can be unfortunate for a couple of different reasons, one of the main ones being your teammates killing the enemies that you are trying to kill. But if you're a solo player, that is not a problem at all. And if you just want a decent primary weapon that's not really only being used to apply a ton of status, this is on the very short list of your options. That being said, I do think in terms of just the fun factor for this weapon, it is a whole lot of fun to shoot. Like, the shots are chunky, they feel good, like they have great sound effects. I love all the aesthetics of this weapon, feel great. And it has a very large magazine size, so you're not going to be reloading in combat very often. Usually the enemies are going to have been dead by the time you fire 200 rounds from this thing, because you're going to be getting the secondary fire alongside it, and the secondary fire does not cost any ammo whenever you've built it up. That being said, it does have an extremely long reload that sucks. It could easily be a couple seconds shorter and still be considered very long, and that's a bit unfortunate for this weapon on the whole, because, you know, it's already very restrictive in terms of its use, and it would have been nice to have like higher fire rate, faster reload speed on this, but of course that'd be nice on a number of different primaries that probably should be better. That being said, this weapon is good enough that I am going to do this test at level 80, because it can handle it, because its secondary fire gives it a huge edge. So let's get into this test. The basic gist with the Trumna is that you want to pick off the weak enemies first, and then the secondary fire is going to be able to very easily handle the much tougher enemies, as we're going to see here. Those enemies are all now dead. And you can see it hits multiple times. That's because that's the projectile bouncing and hitting a bunch of extra times, which is, of course, very, very good. We have the secondary fire charge up once again. Kill that enemy. And then the inherent heat on this weapon is nice for whenever you're just trying to build up a bunch of slash procs to take down the more heavily armored targets as well. So yeah, it's solid enough. Like, obviously, it was pretty easily able to clear those level 80s. And yesterday, in the Rhino Prime video, or in the Rhino builds video, rather, I showed this off in the Steel Path on the Kuva Fortress Survival, and it does quite well there. Of course, there it's being combined with Larva and also Roar to increase its damage output quite a bit. But, you know, most of the time, if we're bringing things to the Steel Path and you're planning to use a gun, you're going to bring a buff Warframe, so that's kind of what you expect. And I think it did pretty impressively for a primary weapon, at the very least. But yeah, that's the Trumna. I think it's a good deal of fun. I think there's like a lot of different things that DE could have done to kind of push this weapon a little more. Maybe bring primary weapons, you know, back to the point of being more primary, if you will. But it is a very enjoyable weapon to use, and I like it quite a bit for what it is. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see it in the Steel Path, obviously that is in my Rhino builds video from yesterday. And I will see y'all later. Goodbye, everybody.